This video is sponsored by DistroKid, the easiest way for musicians to get their music into today's hottest streaming services. DIY acoustic panels. I've already shown you how to build them, and now I'm going to show you how to make them better with my super absorbers and bass traps. If you want to see what's inside, then join me for this episode of I Don't Have a Band right now. Welcome to episode 25 of I Don't Have a Band. Hey there, I'm Dan, the self-proclaimed Lonely Rocker. Welcome to DIY Acoustic Panels 2.0. The first video I produced for this channel was my cheap and awesome acoustic panels. It's done so well, allowing me to connect with so many people and to learn so much more about making these panels. The two things I've heard from all of you is you want better absorption at lower frequencies and a device to contain the inner insulation better. So I've developed methods that address both. This video is going to center around this super chunky 8-inch absorber, which will work great as a DIY bass trap and features all of my new enhancements. It contains multiple layers of materials at varying densities to soak up a much wider range of frequencies than standard panels can. And I've added handles to it so it can be moved around the studio for recording purposes. It's quite a versatile tool. And if you stick around, I'm going to summarize the elements from this panel that you can include in standard 4-inch or 6-inch panels to give you different options for your studio that you can build yourself. So stay tuned for that. If you need a more detailed explanation on the general construction method for these panels, I'll link you to the other video at key points during this video, so you won't be left behind. Okay, if you're ready to step up to 2.0, let's go. So what's new in 2.0? The biggest change is what's inside. The frame construction stays the same. A wooden frame with 2 support rails has proven sturdy and reliable. My panels are 24 inches wide by 48 inches tall and conform to the size of Rockwool's Safe and Sound insulation. The dimensions of my 8-inch panels are the same, except I'm using 1x8 lumber instead of the 1x4s that I use for standard panels. Though I use 1x4s for the support rails regardless of the width of the panels. Side pieces are cut to 46.5 inches, top and bottom pieces are 24 inches, and the inner support rails are about 22.75 inches, but take a measurement on your frame before you cut so it fits snugly. I use standard pine lumber, but you can experiment with other types of wood or even MDF if you like. I had a quick side thought I wanted to share. If you're making acoustic panels, it means you want your music to sound better. And if your music sounds better, then the next thing you want to do is get it out so people can hear it. I got to that point and had no idea how to get my songs into online stores and streaming services like Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and others. Enter DistroKid. I had no idea how easy it was. Well, maybe it's not, but DistroKid sure makes it feel like it. With the basic musician account, you can distribute your songs to over 150 destinations. You keep 100% of your royalties and can upload an unlimited amount of albums and songs for a whole year for less than $20. And if you click the link in the description, you'll get an extra 7% off the regular price, just because you found this video. DistroKid is loaded with features. You can keep all of your earnings or set up splits. You can distribute cover songs legally, and you can get paid if anyone uses your music on YouTube. That is awesome. With so many platforms hosting your music, you never know who might discover it. DistroKid is by far the easiest way for you to get your music out to where people are listening. I'm so thrilled I found them. And make sure to click that link to get your discount. Okay, here's your first panel build tip. If your plan is to make a bunch of panels, cut a template for each size of lumber you need. I keep a set of these on hand. So instead of measuring each time, mark your cuts off using your prefab templates. It will save you a lot of time. Assembling your frame is pretty straightforward. Fasten the top and bottom pieces to the ends of the side panels to ensure you maintain the 2x4 dimension. Make sure to drill pilot holes so you don't split the wood, and use wood glue to ensure a strong bond. I use 8x1.25 wood screws. Carefully drill in your screws. I do the last few turns with a screwdriver and countersink them so they won't cause any bumps in the outer fabric when we wrap it later. If you're making 6 or 8-inch panels, you'll want to use 3 wood screws at each corner. For 4-inch panels, you'll just need 2. When assembling the support rails, I put some glue along the top edge and fastened it to the frame with 2 screws on each end. Now that our frame is built, let's take a look at the inner workings of this 8-inch panel. Afterwards, I'll present options for 4-inch and 6-inch panels. I found this great material at the fabric store. It's generally found at the bottom of couches and chairs. It's quite strong and has a bit of a sheen to it, but it's still very breathable. I'm going to refer to this as the backing fabric, as it will be put on the back of each panel, but it makes other appearances. Any fabric store that sells fabrics for upholstery will carry a similar product, and it's pretty cheap. I cut an oversized sheet of this backing fabric and laid it on top of the frame. From there, I measured and cut 2 pieces of Rockwool Comfort Board 80 insulation. For some reason, the dimensions of this product are different than Safe and Sound. So I traced a bat of Safe and Sound to figure out where to cut. A nice serrated knife like this cuts through the comfort board like butter. Then I placed them on top of the backing fabric in the frame. This insulation is great because it's denser than Safe and Sound, and 2 layers are going to provide some serious lower frequency absorption. Make sure not to lose the ends of the fabric behind the insulation. Once in place, I vacuumed up any bits that had come loose in the box, and then I folded and stapled the excess fabric over the top of this first layer of insulation. The next step is to take 1 bat of Rockwool Safe and Sound and lay it on top of the Comfort Board 80. This will fit perfectly inside of a 2x4 frame. If you've modified the frame size for your panels, then just cut the insulation to fit your specs. Once this was in place, I cut another oversized piece of the backing fabric and laid it over the frame. With a putty knife, I carefully tucked in the fabric all around the Safe and Sound insulation. The idea is to seal the Safe and Sound inside the best we can. And sandwiching this in between the comfort board and the top layers that will follow keeps this deep inside the panel. We're not done yet though. The dreaded acoustic foam makes an appearance in this video. Acoustic foam on its own sucks. Get over it. If your studio is lined with this stuff, you're killing some higher frequencies, but none of the mid to lower frequencies where most of the issues are found. What inspired me to introduce this crap into the brew was my vacuum cleaner. I was changing the filter and noticed it resembled acoustic foam. And since it does have some acoustic properties, however minimal, I figured these 1-inch foam panels would work well as a top layer. It will cut out some of the high frequencies on the way in and provide an additional layer to contain any insulation fibers inside that may try to escape. Kind of like a filter. I used the ridges in the foam as a guide where I needed to trim. Using a little glue behind each foam panel, I laid out 8 pieces face down across the top. And to hold everything in place, I used this roll of 3-inch elastic, also available at your local fabric store. I just ran one from top to bottom, pulling it tight and stapling it to each end. And then another piece across. You'll appreciate this when you're moving your panels around before putting the final fabric on. A lot of people have asked me what fabric I use for my panels. The fabric I use is actually upholstery fabric. It's nice and rigid and has an anti-slip coating on one side. It's so easy to wrap because it doesn't crease easily and holds its shape when you fold it. Check out the upholstery section of the fabric store to see what I mean. It's way better than burlap. By the way, I hate burlap. When wrapping your fabric, you can follow the steps outlined in my other video with this consideration. You need to measure your fabric based on the size of your wooden frame. If you're building an 8-inch panel like this one, then you'll need to have at least 10 inches of material on all sides of your frame. The rule of thumb is to have at least 2 inches of extra fabric all around the frame to give you enough to grab onto when stapling. You certainly can add more if you want. If you're building 4-inch thick panels, have at least 6 inches of fabric. For 6-inch panels, make sure you have at least 8. You get the idea. Once you've cut your fabric correctly, you can get to wrapping. Again, you can refer to the other video to learn how to wrap your panels and make perfect corners. The last step in the process is to put one last layer of the backing fabric on the back of the panel. I put this on last for one reason. If for any reason you ever need to open the panels, you can get in through the back without disturbing the finishing fabric on the front, which is what you actually see in your studio. I did modify the 2 clouds in my studio and it saved me a bunch of work not having to disturb the front fabric. Let's review the layers starting from the back. We have our backing fabric on the outside of the frame, and another sheet on the inside behind all of the insulation. Then we have 2 sheets of our crumble-friendly Comfort Board 80. On top of that is 1 bat of Rockwool Safe and Sound. All of that goodness is sealed in with another layer of our backing fabric. Then we have a layer of acoustic foam. And finally, the outer wrap material. This formula makes a great base trap. I mounted these in the corner. It gives you a nice air gap in the back and a solid 8 inches of progressively thicker absorption materials. I installed handles on my panels so I can pull them off the wall easily and use them as gobos whenever I need to. You could modify the shape of your frame and make them flush with the corners if they're going to be more permanent. A little harder to make, but if you got the skills, go for it. I'm going to do some sound tests and we'll post those on my Patreon page, as well as some mounting tips. If you want to check that out, the link to my Patreon page is in the description. Here are some variations to this formula if you want to make 4 or 6 inch thick panels. For standard 4-inch panels, I definitely recommend putting a layer of the backing material inside the frame, and then one sheet of rock wool safe and sound, followed by another sheet of the backing material, and then the outer wrap and backing fabric on the back of the panel. If you choose to make 6-inch panels, then I'd go with a layer of the backing fabric, one sheet of Comfort Board 80, one bat of safe and sound, followed by a sheet of the backing material and then the acoustic foam, and then your wrap and backing fabric on the outside. Depending on your studio's needs, you can mix and match the different size panels as required. And you can certainly play around with this formula. Just be aware of what's absorbing and what's sealing it all in. Mineral wool insulation has become the material of choice for acoustic panels. It has surpassed fiberglass-based products like Owens Corning 703 as the standard. While all the information I could find supports the idea that mineral wool is far safer than fiberglass, many argue any insulation is designed to be inside walls and not decorating the walls of studios hiding behind breathable fabric. I did speak to a representative at Rockwool. While their products were never designed to be used inside acoustic panels, they provided data showing the safety of the materials and they had no concerns. One point was mineral wool fibers are heavier than air, so if they escape, they simply fall to the ground. But why tempt fate? While there's no way we can ensure we can contain 100% of the inner materials because you can't wrap your panels in plastic or they will just become reflectors, we can take some precautions to contain the materials better and improve the absorption qualities in the process, which is what I've done here with these panels. However, I do not officially endorse any of the products or materials I use in my build, and I encourage you all to do your own due diligence if you have any concerns. What I can say is I've treated my home studio with these absorbers and they have made a huge difference for my music. Don't forget to click that link to DistroKit in the description to get your account set up and to get a great discount courtesy of The Lonely Rocker. If you like what I'm doing here, please consider visiting me at lonelyrocker.com or supporting me by becoming a patron on my Patreon page. This helps me continue to make more content and you get some perks and bonus content not available here on YouTube. As always, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And please like, subscribe, and ring that bell to stay up to date. Remember, you don't need a band to rock and roll. There are a lot of great musical projects you can do by yourself, right from your own home. I hope to see you again next time.